Welcome back to the Top 1% Book Club, where we bring you actionable insights from top self-improvement books. Today, we're diving deep into a productivity classic.
Okay.
David Allen's Getting Things Done. You ready to declutter your mind, conquer your to-do list, and start getting things done?
Absolutely. Getting things done, or GTD as it's often called, is more than just a productivity hack. It's a whole system for achieving what Allen calls mind like water.
Ooh, I love that image.
Treat that state of calm, clear, responsive awareness where you feel ready for anything.
Mind like water. But before we get to that state of Zen-like productivity,
Yeah.
let's unpack why so many of us feel overwhelmed in the first place.
Well, the world of work has changed drastically. We've shifted from manual labor with clear-cut tasks and predictable schedules
Right.
to something called knowledge work. Think about it. Today, so many jobs involve juggling information,
Right.
making decisions, and collaborating across teams, often with no clear boundaries or finish line in sight. It's no wonder we're feeling the pressure.
And then there's technology keeping us always on. Globalization ramping up the pressure, information overload coming at us from every direction.
Exactly. Our poor brains are trying to run 100 different apps at the same time.
Our old tools for managing all this,
Yeah.
the to-do lists, the calendars,
Right.
just weren't built for this level of complexity. They worked fine when work was linear and predictable. But now we need a system designed for how our minds actually work. In this hyper-connected world,
Yes.
that's where GTD comes in.
Yeah.
So let's break it down. What's the big idea behind this system?
So GTD is essentially a complete workflow for capturing, processing, and organizing everything that's vying for our attention.
Okay.
And it all starts with acknowledging those nagging tasks and unfinished projects swirling around in our heads.
Yeah.
The open loops, as Alan calls them. Those things, you should be doing but haven't quite gotten around to yet.
Right.
Think about that nagging feeling of, oh, I need to remember to.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
That's an open loop.
Okay, so how do we wrangle all these open loops?
First stage of GTD is capture. This means getting absolutely everything out of your head and into a system you trust. Use whatever tools work for you.
Okay.
Inboxes, notebooks, voice memos, project management apps. The point is to externalize all those open loops so your mind can finally relax.
That makes sense, but just dumping everything into a giant to-do list doesn't seem all that helpful.
Right.
What's next?
That's where the second stage, clarify, comes in. For each item you've captured, you ask yourself a crucial question.
Okay.
Is it actionable? If the answer is yes, then you define the very next physical step you need to take to move that task forward. And the key here is to be specific. Instead of get car tuned up,
Right.
your next action might be call John for garage recommendation.
So by breaking down tasks into smaller, more concrete steps,
Yeah.
we avoid that feeling of being overwhelmed
Mm,
and actually know where to start.
precisely. And once you have those clear next actions, it's time to move on to the third stage. Organize. This is where GTD really shines. With its system of lists, folders, and calendars, tailored to different types of tasks and commitments.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does organizing actually look like in the GTD world?
Think of it as putting things where they belong. Time-specific appointments go on your calendar.
Okay.
Tasks you need to do as soon as possible go on your next actions list. Projects that require multiple steps get broken down into smaller tasks,
Right.
each with its own next action. You can even have a waiting for list for tasks you've delegated to others. The key is to have a clear system that allows you to quickly see what needs to be done
Right.
and when.
This sounds incredibly organized, but I have to admit, the idea of managing all these different lists and categories is a little daunting. Is
Yeah.
there a risk of getting bogged down in the system itself?
That's a valid concern, and this is where the fourth stage of GTD comes in. Reflect. This is all about regularly reviewing your system and making sure it's still working for you. Alan recommends a weekly review, where you go through all your lists, update them, clear out completed items, and reevaluate your priorities.
So it's like pressing the refresh button on your system to make sure it stays aligned with your current goals and priorities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But how does all of this actually lead to getting things done?
That brings us to the fifth and final stage, engage.
Okay.
This is where you actually do the work, but here's the key difference. Because you've captured, clarified, and organized everything else, you can now focus on the task at hand with a clear mind and a sense of calm. No more mental clutter, no more second guessing. That's the power of mind like water, being fully present and engaged in the moment, without the distraction of all those open loops.
Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal of this system.
Yeah.
The GTD isn't just about individual tasks.
Right.
I've heard it can be a powerful tool for decision-making.
That's
and
right.
project planning as well.
In fact, Allen provides a framework called the Natural Planning Model
Okay.
that helps you tackle even the most complex projects with clarity and confidence.
Sounds fascinating. Let's take a quick pause and come back to explore how GTD can help us plan and execute like pros.
Okay, so we've covered the 5 stages of GTD workflow: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. But you mentioned something called the Natural Planning Model.
Right.
What is that, and how does it fit into this system?
The natural planning model is a framework for approaching projects in a way that aligns with how our brains naturally work. It takes the guesswork out of project management and provides a clear roadmap for moving from initial idea to successful completion.
So it's not about forcing ourselves into some rigid project management methodology, but rather working with our natural thought processes.
Exactly. Think about how you instinctively approach a big project in your own life.
Okay.
You likely start by defining the purpose, the why behind it. What are you hoping to achieve?
Right.
Then you envision the outcome, the desired result. What will it look like when it's done?
That makes sense. I definitely do that, even if it's not always a conscious process. Right. And Alan essentially gives us a structured framework for applying this natural process more consistently. So
Yeah.
after you've defined your purpose and envisioned the outcome, the next step is brainstorming. This is where you generate ideas and possibilities,
Okay.
exploring different approaches and potential solutions.
It's like opening up the creative floodgates and letting all the ideas flow freely.
Precisely. And once you've got a good pool of ideas, you move on to organizing.
Okay.
This is where you start to structure those ideas, prioritize them, and sequence them into a logical plan.
So you're moving from the free-flowing brainstorming phase
Yeah.
to a more structured and strategic approach.
Exactly. And finally, once you have a clear plan in place, you identify the very next actions needed to move the project forward. This brings us back to the core GTD workflow, breaking down those larger project goals into those smaller, actionable steps.
It's like that aha moment when you realize you've been doing a simplified version of GTD all along, without even knowing it. And Alan just gives us a more robust and intentional framework to apply it consistently across all areas of our lives.
I think that's a great way to put it. And this structured approach is especially helpful when you hit those inevitable roadblocks in a project.
Right.
Instead of spinning your wheels, you can step back and ask yourself, okay, what's the purpose here? What outcome am I aiming for? What are the potential next steps?
It's like having that mental roadmap to guide you through the complexities and prevent those moments of feeling lost or overwhelmed.
Exactly. And speaking of decision making, GTD offers valuable tools for choosing the right actions to focus on in any given moment.
Okay.
One of the key principles is to consider 4 factors: context, time, energy, and priority.
Okay, let's break those down. Context seems pretty straightforward. It's about what you can realistically accomplish in your current environment.
Right, it's about your physical location.
Like if I'm at my computer,
Yeah,
I can't suddenly decide to reorganize the garage.
right. The tools you have available, and even your mental state. Some tasks require a quiet space for deep thinking,
Right.
while others can be done on the go.
Then there's time, which is probably the most obvious constraint. We can only do things that fit within the time we have available before our next commitment.
And that's why a well-maintained calendar is crucial in the GTD system. By having a clear view of your available time, you can choose actions that realistically fit within those windows.
Energy is another important consideration. We all have those days when we're feeling mentally or physically drained.
And on those days, it's important to choose tasks that align with your energy levels. Maybe instead of tackling that complex report, you focus on clearing your inbox or doing some light brainstorming.
And finally, there's priority. This seems like the most subjective of the 4 factors.
It is, but it's also where everything comes together. After considering context, time, and energy,
Right.
you ask yourself, of the remaining options, which action will give me the biggest payoff right now in terms of moving me closer to my goals?
So it's not just about working through your to-do list in a random order, but rather strategically choosing the actions that will have the most impact at any given moment.
Exactly. And Alan takes this decision-making framework even further with what he calls the 6-level model for reviewing your work.
Okay, so it's like zooming out to see the big picture and making sure your day-to-day actions are actually contributing to your long-term goals and aspirations.
Exactly. Think of it as a series of horizons,
Okay,
each representing a different level of focus. It starts with the ground level, which is all about your current actions, what you're working on right now.
okay, so that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of actually getting things done.
Right. Then you move up to Horizon 1, which encompasses your current projects,
Okay.
those multi-step endeavors that require ongoing effort and attention.
So that could be anything from launching a new product at work to planning a family vacation.
Exactly. Then we move up to Horizon 2, which is about your areas of focus and responsibility. These are the broader roles and commitments that shape your life. Things like your career, your family,
Right.
your community involvement, your hobbies, and your personal growth.
So it's about looking beyond specific projects
Mm-hmm.
and considering the larger areas of your life that you want to cultivate and contribute to.
Precisely. Then we move up to Horizon 3, which encompasses your goals for the next 1 to 2 years.
Okay.
These are more concrete aspirations that you're actively working towards, like getting a promotion, writing a book, or running a marathon.
So it's about thinking strategically about where you want to be in the near future and
Okay.
setting those intentions into motion.
Exactly. Then we move up to Horizon 4, which is all about your vision for the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
This is where you start to think bigger and bolder. What kind of impact do you want to make on the world? What legacy do you want to leave behind?
That's getting into some pretty profound territory.
It is, and it's a powerful exercise to envision those long-term aspirations and then consider how your current actions are contributing to that vision. And finally, we reach Horizon 5, which is about your purpose and principles, your ultimate why in life. This is the bedrock of your values and beliefs, the driving force behind everything you do.
It's like connecting your everyday actions to a deeper sense of meaning and purpose. It's incredible how GTD bridges that gap between the mundane and the profound.
That's what makes it such a powerful system. By regularly reviewing your work at these different altitudes, you can ensure that your daily tasks and projects are aligned with your long-term vision and values.
So it's not just about getting things done, it's about getting the right things done, the things that truly matter to you and move you closer to your ideal life.
That's a great way to sum it up. And this is where GTD goes beyond just productivity and becomes a system for achieving greater inner peace and empowerment.
Okay, I'm definitely interested in exploring that aspect.
Yeah.
How exactly does GTD contribute to those outcomes?
Let's delve into those benefits, along with potential challenges and criticisms. When we return for the final part of our deep dive into getting things done,
We've talked about the mechanics of GTD, the 5 stages of workflow, the natural planning model, the 6-level model for reviewing your work. But you mentioned that GTD goes beyond just productivity
yeah,
and can actually lead to greater inner peace and empowerment. How does that work?
well, think about what causes a lot of our stress and anxiety. It's often that feeling of being overwhelmed, of having too much on our plates, of constantly juggling mental to-do lists and worrying about forgetting something important.
I think we can all relate to that feeling. It's like having a constant background hum of mental clutter that makes it hard to focus and relax.
Exactly. And GTD addresses that head on by providing a system for capturing and externalizing all those open loops. By getting everything out of your head and into a trusted system,
Correct.
you free up mental space and reduce that cognitive overload.
So it's like taking a deep breath and finally letting go of all that mental baggage.
That's a great way to put it. And when you're not constantly trying to remember everything and feeling overwhelmed, you naturally feel calmer and more in control.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But beyond just reducing stress, you also mentioned empowerment.
Right.
How does GTD contribute to that?
GTD empowers you in a couple of ways. First, the act of capturing and clarifying your commitments
Okay.
forces you to make conscious decisions about what you're saying yes to. You become more aware of how you're spending your time and energy, and more likely to say no to things that don't truly align with your values or goals.
So it's like taking back control of your life and making choices that are aligned with your priorities rather than just reacting to whatever comes your way.
Exactly. And the second way GTD empowers you is through the sense of accomplishment
Okay.
that comes from consistently completing tasks. Even small wins can boost your self-efficacy and create a feeling of momentum, which makes it easier to tackle bigger challenges.
It's like that feeling of I'm on top of things, which gives you the confidence to take on more and achieve more.
Precisely. And there's a quote from David Allen that captures this beautifully. When all of our potentially meaningful things are captured, clarified, organized, and reflected upon, the more mature, elegant, and intelligent part of who we really are can show up at the table.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's like GTD clears away all the mental clutter and allows your true potential to shine through.
Exactly.
And it's not just about individual empowerment. The principles of GTD can also have a profound impact on teamwork and organizational culture.
Absolutely.
Really? How's
Imagine a team or organization. where everyone is on the same page about commitments, deadlines, and responsibilities, where information flows seamlessly, and there's a shared understanding of who's doing what and by when.
That sounds like a dream come true, especially compared to the chaotic reality of many workplaces.
It is, and GTD can help create that reality. When everyone embraces the principles of capturing, clarifying, and organizing tasks, communication improves, accountability increases, and things simply get done more effectively.
So it's like having a shared language and a set of tools for collaboration that reduce stress, eliminate confusion, and allow teams to focus on the work itself rather than constantly putting out fires.
Precisely. And Allen emphasizes the importance of clearly defining next actions in a collaborative setting. For example, after a meeting, it's not enough to just agree on a general plan.
Right.
You also need to specify who's responsible for each step, what the desired outcome is, and by when it needs to be completed.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like that old saying, if it's everyone's job, it's nobody's job. By assigning clear ownership and deadlines,
Right.
you create a sense of responsibility and ensure that things actually get done.
Exactly.
And when teams consistently deliver on their commitments, it creates a culture of high performance, mutual respect, and trust.
That's amazing. So GTD is not just a personal productivity system, it's a blueprint for building a more effective and collaborative work environment.
That's one of the most powerful and often overlooked aspects of Allen's work. But as with any system, GTD isn't without its potential downsides. That's true. What are some of the criticisms people have raised?
One common concern is that GTD can be a pretty complex system to implement, especially in the beginning, as you're setting up your system and developing those new habits.
Right.
It does require a certain level of discipline and commitment.
But once you have those habits in place,
Mhm.
does the system actually save you time and energy in the long run?
That's the idea. By investing that initial effort in setting up your system and doing your weekly reviews, you avoid all the wasted time and energy of constantly trying to remember everything,
Right.
feeling overwhelmed, and scrambling to catch up.
So it's like any new skill.
Yeah,
It takes time and effort to master, but the payoff is well worth it.
exactly. And remember, GTD is a journey, not a destination. You can start small experiment with different tools and techniques and adapt the system to fit your own unique needs and preferences.
So it's not about rigidly following a set of rules. It's about finding what works for you and continually refining your approach. Another criticism is that GTD can become too focused on efficiency and productivity, potentially at the expense of creativity and spontaneity.
Right.
That's an interesting point. Could getting too caught up in the system actually stifle those moments of inspiration and innovation?
It's definitely possible. And that's why it's important to remember that GTD is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. If you become too obsessed with checking things off your list and optimizing every minute of your day, you
Yeah.
can lose sight of the bigger picture and the joy of simply being in the moment.
So it's all about finding that balance.
Right.
Using GTD to create structure and free up mental space,
Yeah.
but also allowing for flexibility, spontaneity, and those unplanned moments of creativity and connection.
Exactly.
And it's important to remember that GTD is meant to serve you, not the other way around.
Right.
If you find that it's becoming too rigid or controlling, don't be afraid to adapt it or even step away from it altogether. So for our listeners who are intrigued by GTD
Mhm.
and want to explore it further, what are some key takeaways to keep in mind?
First and foremost, understand that GTD is not a quick fix. It's a comprehensive system that requires a change in mindset and a commitment to developing new habits.
Okay.
But it's a system that has the potential to transform your life, both professionally and personally, by reducing stress, increasing clarity, and empowering you to achieve your goals with greater ease and confidence.
So start small, experiment, be patient, and trust the process. And who knows, you might just achieve that elusive mind-like water state that Allen talks about.
Well said. It's been a pleasure exploring the depths of getting things done with you today.
Likewise. And for our listeners, if you're eager to put these principles into practice, we've got some bonus resources and actionable tips waiting for you on our website. Just head over to the website address and get ready to start getting things done.
Until next time, stay focused, stay productive, and keep striving for that mind-like water.